Okay, hi folks. This is Empowering Democracy. It's another Dump the Corruption show. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. And my topic for tonight on Dump the Corruption is Senator Robert, Menendez. Robert Menendez. I'm sure that you all know that he's in the middle of another scandal. He was in a scandal 8 years ago. He managed to get out of it. He had a lot of support from various funders of both the Democratic Party, okay, and also the Republican Party. And he escaped a conviction when the person, who was who had tried to bribe him, an ophthalmologist, in Florida, who I shouldn't say tried to bribe him, who evidently did bribe him, was convicted, but during the trial, they never moved, any further to designate who it was the ophthalmologist was trying to bribe. So the conclusion, essentially, of the trial was that he was convicted for bribing no one, since Senator Menendez was never named, as the briber. No, I should say as the bribee. The bribee was Senator Menendez, but they could not mention the name of the bribee for some reason, and so they never convicted Menendez then. But now he's in hot water again. Hey, Steve, how are you doing? Okay, so Menendez is in hot water again, and since this is the Dump the Corruption show, we decided at the suggestion of Stephen Wolfbrand, who's here tonight, to cover this. I wasn't going to cover this at first because I thought it's kind of trivial, but it's really not trivial. It's really right in the wheelhouse of the Dump the Corruption show. So, since it is in the wheelhouse, I am going to cover it. I'm going to take a second to share it, on Facebook, which I just did. And so here we go. First of the articles we'll cover is a Common Dreams article. And the Common Dreams article headline is that Senator Menendez faces calls to step down following bribery charges. Just Foreign Policies, Just the Foreign Policy is a voluntary association, an interest group, says. Anyway, its director, whose name, is Aida Chavez, said the charges against him, quote, are very serious, call into question Senator Menendez's character and ability to perform his role as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That committee, the SFRC, is one of the most important and key committees, in Congress. And basically, the committee chair has been under the thumb of major donors, supporters, of the state of Israel for years and years and years. This article was written by Jessica Corbett. It was updated at 5 p.m. ET. It was written on September 22nd, 2023, with no date on it. The implication is it was updated right now at 5 p.m. ET. Today, 5 p.m. ET. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer confirmed Friday afternoon, no, I guess that was last Friday, that Senator Bob Menendez will temporarily step down as head of the Chamber's Foreign Relations panel after the New Jersey Democrat was hit with federal bribery charges. Quote, that Bob has been a dedicated public servant and is always fighting hard for the people of New Jersey. He has a right to due process and a fair trial, unquote, said Schumer, Democrat of New York. Quote, Senator Menendez has rightly decided to step down temporarily from his position as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee until the matter has been resolved. Okay, so I should say that approximately 8 years ago, he was in hot water too. That was in 2015. And he stepped down then temporarily for a while. Senator Ben Cardin took his place. He was out there for roughly 3 years. He did not take over his position as the committee chair again until 2018. So that's just for background notice. Earlier, U.S. Senator Bob Menendez on Friday faced calls to step down from his powerful chairmanship of the Foreign Relations Committee or resign altogether following another damning federal indictment for alleged bribery. The New Jersey Democrat and his wife, Nadine Menendez, are accused of engaging in, quote, a corrupt relationship, unquote, with the businessman Wael, quote, Will, unquote, Hannah. Jose Uribe and Fred Daibes, and accepting bribes in the form of, quote, cash, gold, payments toward a home mortgage, compensation for a low or no-show job, a luxury vehicle, and other things of value, unquote. But Nadine Menendez and the businessman are also facing charges. So evidently in this case, there's going to be both a briber and a bribee. The indictment says that the senator, quote, provided sensitive U.S. government information and took other steps that secretly aided the government of Egypt, unquote, as well as, quote, improperly advised, pressured an official at the United States Department of Agriculture for the purpose of protecting a business monopoly granted to Hannah, unquote. Senator also used his role to, quote, disrupt a criminal investigation and prosecution undertaken by the New Jersey Attorney General's office related to Uribe, the indictment adds. Senator Menendez further recommended that President Joe Biden nominate Philip R. Salinger as U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey because he believed that a lawyer could be influenced regarding a federal criminal prosecution of Daibes. In June 2022, searches of the couple's New Jersey home and a safety deposit box. Federal agents found, quote, cash, gold, okay, the luxury vehicle, and home furnishings, unquote. Okay, the document details. And quote again, over $480,000 in cash, much of it stuffed into envelopes and hidden in clothing, closets, and a safe was discovered in the home, along with over 70,000 in but Nadine Menendez's safe deposit box, unquote. 69-year-old senator who's up for re-election next year was previously indicted on federal bribery charges in 2015. He temporarily stepped down as the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Due to a hung jury, the case ended as a mistrial in 2017. The following year, prosecutors decided not to seek a new trial, and Menendez was reelected for his current term. In a statement Friday, the senator said in part that, quote, I've been falsely accused before because I refused to back down to the powers that be, and the people of New Jersey were able to see through the smoke and mirrors and recognize that I was innocent. Uh, I don't think there was such a court finding. There never is. Daniela Diaz tweeted, no statement from Senator Menendez. He defends himself. No mention of stepping down from the SFRC. Quote, those behind this campaign simply cannot accept that a first generation Latino American from humble beginnings could rise to be a U.S. Senator and serve with honor and distinction. Even worse, they see me as an obstacle in the way of their broader political goals. Quote, I have been falsely accused before because I refused to back down to the powers that be, and the people of New Jersey were able to see through the smoke and mirrors and recognize I was innocent. I've worked every day to repay their trust by fighting to create jobs, strengthen public safety, update infrastructure, and reduce costs for New Jersey families. Why do I doubt these pronouncements? I've also stood steadfast against dictators around the globe, whether they be in Iran, Cuba, Turkey, okay, or elsewhere. Have you seen him fighting against the Saudi dictators? Fighting against the forces of appeasement and standing with those who stand for freedom and democracy. I remain focused on continuing this important work and will not be distracted by baseless allegations. And Nadine uh, and but Nadine Menendez's lawyer, David Schertler, told the New York Times that she, quote, denies any criminal conduct and will vigorously contest these charges in court, unquote. Newspaper reported that while representatives for two of the businessmen could not immediately be reached for comment, spokesperson for HANA said, so this is Will Hanna, that, quote, we are still reviewing the charges, but based upon our initial review, they have absolutely no merit, unquote. A spokesperson for the Southern District of New York, but Nicholas Biasi, told the Times that all 5 defendants are set to appear in Manhattan Federal Court on Wednesday, stressing that the charges against him are very serious and call into question Senator Menendez's character and ability to perform his role as chair of U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Just Foreign Policy Communications Director The aforementioned Aida Chavez on Friday urged the senator, quote, to do the right thing and to step down for the duration of these legal proceedings as he did in 2015. Given that Senator Menendez is accused of using his post to enrich himself while guiding U.S. foreign policy in a, quote, harmful direction, unquote, Chavez argued Senate leadership should consider a new chair who, quote, is in line with the overwhelming majority of the American people as presidents such as Barack Obama and Biden who want a foreign policy focused on diplomatic solutions, unquote. Quote, Senator Menendez is notorious for placing roadblocks in the path of efforts by diplomats to reduce tensions and avert war, unquote, she explained, and quote again, he is also among the senators most responsible for supporting former President Donald Trump's cruel efforts to tighten indiscriminate sanctions against innocent populations in places like Cuba and Venezuela, which is a major cause of the surge in migrants at the border and in U.S. cities, unquote. While the senator has not publicly confirmed his plans, NBC News reported that, quote, a source close to Menendez says he will step down as chair, unquote, in line with Senate Democratic Conference rules regarding felony charges against people who are members of leadership. Some critics are calling on him to resign as a senator. Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, CREW, President Noah Bookbinder, a former federal corruption prosecutor, said in a statement that, quote, with these latest revelations, it's time for Senator Menendez to resign. The stain of corruption continuously taints Senator Menendez, unquote. Quote, CREW has for years raised concerns about Senator Menendez potentially selling his position, and the Senate Ethics Committee previously found serious misconduct by him. The conduct outlined in today's indictment and the evidence presented are even more damning, unquote, he added. Quote again, the people of New Jersey should not have to be constantly questioning whether one of their senators is taking action for them or to line his pockets. Senator Menendez deserves a fair trial and a presumption on innocence on these latest charges, but it is not appropriate for him to remain in office. Out of respect for the institution of the Senate, he must step down. The charges against Senator Menendez come amid discussions of corruption on Capitol Hill due to recent revelations about multiple members of the U.S. Supreme Court, including reporting on Friday that conservative Justice Clarence Thomas secretly attended at least 2 donor events for the Koch network, yet another example of his ties to right-wing billionaires with business before the court. Yeah, the whole system is rotten with the donors. That's why the dump the corruption is so important. That's why the rule must be followed, specifically when we vote in 2024. We should not vote for anybody who is taking money from the wealthy, from corporations, from PACs, from super PACs, from carry committees, okay, or from party committees. Only small donations should be allowed. Anybody taking anything else should be voted against, whether they're an incumbent or whether they're a candidate trying to get into office. So Jennifer Truthful, not but neutral Rubin. I forget if she's a columnist for the New York Times or the Washington Post. I think it's the New York Times. She says, here's the deal. Senator Menendez resigns. Clarence Thomas resigns. One standard, corruption is corruption. I couldn't agree more. But of course, if corruption is corruption and people are taking big money from the rich or from the wealthy corporations or being supported with huge monies from super PACs, they too need to resign in line with our previous examinations of the sources of money. I think we did this for something like 195 congresspeople or 205 congresspeople and senators. We found that there wasn't a single one, not a single office holder, who wasn't taking big money from one of those sources. The Debt Collective wrote on social media Friday, who does Senator Menendez think he is? A Supreme Court justice? Unquote. This post has been updated with a comment from Crew. This was by Jessica Corbett. Pretty thorough, I think. Pretty good article. Certain outlines the issues. I was expecting Dee to join me and maybe Madeline to join me too tonight, but I don't see them. Steve Wolfman says hello, everybody. And our city councilman John Lee accused of corruption by a casino. Have you heard? Yes, we heard from you yesterday for taking payments from the casino. He's guilty. The entire government is corrupt. AF. Well, you're undoubtedly right, Steve, but I'm not sure what you mean, okay, by AF. But I am going to it could be the ladies I've been expecting. Can't seem to find the link. So I am going to make sure they have the link. It'll just take a minute. I posted it very much earlier today, but maybe they just got too involved in their discussions over there. But anyway, now that I've done that, I will go back to the subject matter of this program, and I'll present the second of our articles for tonight. It's another one from Common Dreams, and this one has to do with Senator Menendez and Cory Booker. And the headline is Booker to Menendez, quote, stepping down is best. Quote, stepping down is not an admission of guilt, but an acknowledgement that holding public office often demands tremendous sacrifices at great personal cost, unquote, said one of New Jersey's U.S. senators to the one facing federal corruption charges. The one facing the federal corruption charges is, by the way, the senior senator from New Jersey. And the one making these comments is the junior senator, from New Jersey. That picture was one in happier times where Cory Booker and Menendez were arriving at a joint session of the U.S. Congress with U.S. President Donald Trump on February 28, 2017. Menendez at that time was also involved in a scandal, and Cory Booker was supporting him. And this picture was taken, with Menendez smiling, Cory Booker there, in the background. So this piece was written by John Kelly, September 26, 2023. Senator Cory Booker on Tuesday called on Senator uh, by Senator Menendez, his fellow New Jersey Democrat in the U.S. Senate, to step aside in the face of a damning federal indictment on corruption charges issued last week. Issued, by the way, by the Department of Justice, uh, a Democratic Department of Justice. As Senator Menendez prepares to mount his legal defense, he has stated that he will not resign, unquote. Booker said in a statement, quote, Senator Menendez fiercely asserts his innocence and is therefore understandable that he believes stepping down is patently unfair, but I believe this is a mistake, unquote. Booker praised Senator Menendez as a friend and trusted colleague, one with a, quote, boundless work ethic, unquote, and who is, quote, deeply empathetic, unquote. This is Senator Menendez's second indictment for corruption, with the first trial over charges brought in 2017, ending in a mistrial. I thought the charges were actually brought in 2015. I think the mistrial may have been in 2017. Quote, it is not surprising to me that Senator Menendez is again determined to mount a vigorous defense, unquote. Booker said Tuesday, I still believe he, like anyone involved with our criminal justice system, deserves our presumption of innocence until proven guilty. The jury of his peers will make the ultimate decision as to whether he is criminally guilty. And there, I think, is D. Yes, it is D. I'm being joined by D peers, from around the world, with D and friends. Hello.
Yes, I'm happy to be here, and Madeline's going to be joining in the comments.
Okay, that will be fine. I'm going through a second article, on the Menendez affair. This one is from Common Dreams, written by John Kelly, and it's the article where Cory Booker starts to. Oh, here's Madeline. So Madeline Hoffman is joining too. And Madeline is joining us from Colombia, and she is a long-time peace activist with an expertise, in Israel-Palestine affairs. She's widely traveled there and is a true expert, on those issues. And of course, for years, she has had to contend with Senator Menendez, and so I'm sure she'll have a lot to say here tonight.
Thank you, Joe. And I should add that I ran against him in 2018.
Oh yes, I should have added that
as a Green Party candidate. So yeah, I do believe that the mistrial was in 2018 at the very beginning, March 2018. It could have been March 2017, but I think it was 2018. And he was, and I mentioned this on Dee's show, and you just read it and reinforced it. He was never declared not guilty. Okay, because the trial ended in a mistrial, so there was no definitive verdict. I don't know if he's gonna. I know some of these politicians think they can beat anything, beat the rap.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he can this time. From what I see, they're moving fast on him. And as I said on the previous show, one of my very well-informed buddies said, whose toes did Menendez step on? Because a lot of stuff like this is hidden. Until
yes, I think that's a great observation, Madeline.
Yeah. Whose toes did he step on? And can he survive if whoever this person or people were, who want him out of office, can he survive this pressure? And when I ran, it was a 2018 race. Okay, I lost my train of thought for a moment. It'll come back. I lost my train of thought.
Okay, so we say that if we had a Dump the Corruption movement in 2018, you might have won that race.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, and that's why. Not that I thought I could have won that race, but you may be right. But there was an unknown woman who ran in the Democratic Party primary against Menendez, and she got over 40% of the vote in the primary.
Really?
Yeah. Lisa McCormick was her name.
Oh, yes, I know Lisa McCormick through Twitter.
Okay. She's kind of fallen from that perch that she was on way back then, but it was very clear at the time, 2017, 2018, was very clear that he was extremely vulnerable, Menendez. But he didn't step down then, and the mistrial gave him cover for that, because he didn't, he survived the mistrial. But if you have a relative unknown run in a Democratic Party primary
and can get 40%.
40% of the vote, and people, that's prompted people to ask me why I never ran as a Democrat, why I didn't run in the primary. And my answer was because I'm not a Democrat, can never be a Democrat, and don't want to be part of that corruption.
In her case, I believe she raised only very, very little money.
That's correct.
And he had all kinds of money. So how did she get 40% of the vote?
Well, the people looked at it as a protest vote. She did have a platform, and the platform was not dissimilar from a Green Party platform. But people, in thinking about it, looking at it, analyzing it, it seemed like it was less a vote around issues. And she probably wouldn't have had to say much of anything, because people were just so angry at Menendez. And I thought that it would make my third party run much easier. But instead, I got people saying the only ethical choice for U.S. Senate, mind you, the only ethical choice for U.S. Senate in 2018 is Senator Bob Menendez. Because, I was like, how do you put ethical and Menendez together in the same sentence, like back to back? And their argument was that because we could get a Republican instead, and the U.S. Senate would lose a Democrat, and that would affect the balance of power.
Well, people are really nuts.
Yeah, and they're still saying those kinds of things. And
I know they've been saying those kinds of things, and those kinds of things are undermining our democracy, and they have been undermining our democracy for decades now. With that sort of argument, I am furious at that sort of argument.
It's like nails on a chalkboard for me now. It's like, no, not again. But you're absolutely right. Forgive me for saying this, but I think it's a lazy person's way of responding to the current situation. I don't think it doesn't involve much thought, and it's parroting over and over and over again, rather than thinking of ways to break out of this, to break out of the two-party box.
Yes. Yes, that's right. And they will not break out of the two-party box. And the two-party box is really a one-party box
Correct.
because both parties are representing the same interests. And that's why we have an inverted totalitarian system here.
Mm.
Don't have a democracy any longer.
Mm-mm.
The people cannot make choices. They cannot control the issues that matter,
Mm-mm.
and they cannot control who is going to be elected, okay, to the Congress, okay, because there's machinery out there that is rigging the choices, so you can never get, okay, to good people, and there are donors out there, okay, that are rigging the choices by selecting certain people, okay, and not others. The people they select are the people who will dance to their tune. And that's basically what we have.
Yeah. And, the people who make those arguments, the ones that I've read lately, they act like they are smarter than everybody else. They act like no one else has ever heard those arguments before. They act like, if you don't, if you're not taking my arguments to heart and taking those arguments seriously, you're, letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Oh,
And
I hate that also because they never offer the good.
that's right.
The perfect being the enemy of the good. It's a question of the good being the enemy of the corrupt. That's what is going on here.
Good point. I've been asking, I'm going to ask you right now on the show, if I agree with the candidate on something like 20% of the issues that matter, am I letting the perfect be the enemy of the good? No, I'm not voting for somebody who only aligns with me on 20% of the issues that matter to me. I
Yeah,
mean,
yes, of course. That is simply giving up your vote.
exactly. I mean,
And if you and everybody else gives up their vote, that means we no longer have a democracy.
yeah, and it's almost like, and first I called people lazy, now I'm going to say this, that the critical thinking part of the U.S. populist brain, it's as if it's been lobotomized.
Yes,
You
I agree entirely.
Okay.
But I agree entirely with that.
Mm.
They've been using those same arguments also against the three candidates who were not the visible choices of the party elites right now.
Yes.
Specifically, Marianne Williamson, okay, Robert Kennedy, and Cornel West, of course.
Yes.
They're making those arguments against all three of them, and it's simply making me sick.
Me too.
I see the videos, that are being fed to me, okay, over YouTube, and so many of them are talking about the issues. Uh, well, how many votes is Cornel West going to take away from Joe Biden? Okay, it's always phrased, okay, in that way.
Correct.
And now some people are saying, how many votes will Robert Kennedy take from Trump? There's some people concerned about that.
Well, and how many votes has Trump taken away from Trump? I mean, by the time elections roll around, he may be he may be subject to 3 or 4 different prison sentences, probably not simultaneously either. Um,
And how many votes is Biden taking away from Biden? I mean, he's been awful, awful, just awful.
Yes, he has.
Yeah,
And what
yeah,
always
and
got me when they do that, it's like I was planning on who I was going to vote for. I had no intention of voting for Democrat or Republican in the last few elections. So, or if I didn't vote for, say, Jill Stein,
Mhm.
hey, I would have left it blank, or maybe I would have wrote in Joe's name. I was not going to vote for who they were presenting,
Right.
Jeez.
and that's why so many people aren't voting. Or they'll leave the top thing blank, and they'll go for just the Senate or just maybe even their local.
Yeah, no, I got a survey like that through text messaging, and it really proved our point. I wasn't thinking about it until after I finished the survey, but the question was, how enthusiastic are you about voting? And I thought they were talking about the presidential race next year. They were actually talking about 2023, which would have been even worse. But I said, not really, not very much. I'm not going to vote Democrat. I'm not going to vote Republican. If Cornel West is the Green Party candidate, I'll vote excitedly for him. Um, but if he's not, I don't know if I'm going to vote at all. And that was, I was making that argument just by filling out that survey. Um, I'm not excited. I can't. I didn't vote for Biden, and in whatever year that was, 2020. I couldn't vote for him. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I couldn't vote for her.
Yeah, why couldn't
Um,
you vote? I mean, who could vote for
you
her?
know, oh, I got a lot of flack for not voting for her. She's a progressive woman, don't you know? Um,
Yeah, she's a progressively insane woman.
I mean, the pushback. I think the pushback is worse than. I mean, the choices or the lack of choices. We're used to that by now. We know that, but it's the pushback and the vote shaming and all the things that go along with it. I mean, if we, and I remember thinking this too when Ralph Nader first ran in 1996, and I was his vice presidential running mate in New Jersey. Um, if we believe in democracy, and I preface that with an if we believe in democracy, then we should be encouraging everybody to run. We shouldn't be saying, oh, no, no, you don't run. No, you can't run. No, 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 no. You
Votes,
have to stay home.
yes, because you're going to take votes away from X, Y, or Z. Okay, if you run.
Yeah, right. But if we were truly a democracy and truly cared about democracy, people would have been encouraging all the people, and people today would encourage everybody who wants to run, and without these qualifying remarks, without these disclaimers. Oh, and the one that I read today drove me insane. That, well, I believe, Cornel West is a good man. He's a very good man. He's a great man. But I hope and I think he's thinking about the impact that his race is going to have on bringing fascism to this country. It's like, can you stop being condescending even for a minute?
Yeah,
Um,
I know, and that's especially awful because there's a great argument, okay, to be made that Joe Biden is bringing fascism to the United States.
yes,
In
yes.
other words, he may be more quiet about it, okay, than Trump. He may not be running a cheap impression, okay, of Mussolini when he campaigns, but that doesn't mean that he is not bringing fascism to the United States. He is censoring people right and left in
hmm
all kinds, okay, of ways. He's running an aggressive, hegemonic type of foreign policy. He's bringing up the risk, okay, of nuclear war. He's supporting the right wing
hmm
neo-fascist government in Israel. Certainly is, okay, a
Ugh,
neo-fascist government, and he's supporting it to the hilt, the same way Trump
Yeah.
did. Uh, okay, there's a difference in the Democrats' their approach to fascism, okay, as opposed to the Republican approach to fascism. But it's still fascism when you unite the corporate interests, okay, with the state and the state
Mm-hmm.
rules, okay, in the interests of the corporations. That was the
Yeah.
definition, okay, that Mussolini offered, okay, of fascism, and that is what Joe Biden has been doing.
Yeah. I mean, were the measures to combat climate change, for example? Um, where and pipelines. What's happening? Why aren't we moving away from fossil fuels and pipelines? Um, you know, I I'm with you 3,000%. And at this point in time, I mean, if people were truly using their powers of critical thinking, when you'd ask who's the lesser of two evils, which I don't want to use that expression anymore, but it truly is difficult to figure that out.
It truly is
Um,
difficult, and also we can't be satisfied with the lesser of two evils, okay, in this particular
mhm,
contest. We have to be rejecting them both because they're
mhm,
both bringing an existential crisis to the United States. The choice between them, as the only two choices, okay, is an existential crisis, okay, for the United States. We can't
agreed.
allow that crisis to manifest itself in 2024. We need some real choices who will withdraw from the foreign policy that is ruining us as a nation and it threatens to ruin the whole world. We have to get rid of that foreign policy. It is vital that we do. And the only way we can get rid of the foreign policy, okay, is to elect a president who's going to get rid of that foreign policy. Now, I'm not sure whether Marianne Williamson would get rid of that foreign policy, but I think that both Cornette West, okay,
Hmm.
and also Bobby Kennedy would get rid of that particular foreign policy. Though, of course, I have my doubts with respect to the issue of Israel Palestine. That Bobby Kennedy, after his absolute ridiculous pronouncements with Rabbi Shmuley,
Hmm.
that he would change our foreign policy there. That was terrible. What he did with Rabbi Shmuley was simply terrible.
Yeah, it
Okay,
was.
huh? I'm sorry.
No, all I said was yes, it was.
It was
Mm.
absolutely terrible. So, okay, I was in the middle of an article, essentially recording Senator Booker's reaction, okay,
Mm.
to the Menendez situation. Okay, so I'll go on with that article. Okay, at this point, he
Yeah,
says,
let me just say one other thing about that, and that they're peas in a pod, those two.
I know.
Um, so that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah. Okay, but Booker said it's not surprising to me that Senator Menendez is again determined to mount a vigorous defense. Unquote. Okay, he said this on Tuesday,
Mm.
and quote. And I still believe he, like anyone involved with our criminal justice system, deserves our presumption of innocence until proven guilty. A jury of his peers will make the ultimate decision as to whether he is criminally guilty. Quote again, there is, however, another higher standard for public officials, one not of criminal law, but of common ideals, unquote, he continued. And quote again, as senators, we operate in the public trust. That trust is essential to our ability to do our work and perform our duties to our constituents, unquote. Booker now joins other Democratic, uh, okay, I guess there's a misprint here. Okay, it should be other Democrats in the upper chambers, including Senators John Fetterman, Democrat of Pennsylvania, Sherrod Brown, the Democrat of Ohio, Tammy Baldwin, the Democrat of Wisconsin, John Tester, okay, who's Democrat, okay, of Montana, and Bob Casey, a Democrat of Pennsylvania, who have called on Senator Menendez to resign. On Monday, defiant, Senator Menendez made his first public remarks about the indictment, in which he said the nearly 480,000 in cash and gold bars found in his house was from his own personal savings account over the years. All money he claimed was legitimately earned from his career as a politician and lawmaker. He said he would not resign, though he acknowledged the legal battle ahead would be tough. Once the process was over, he vowed that, quote, not only will I be exonerated, I will still be New Jersey's senior senator, unquote. So there, Cory Booker. In
Jeez.
statement, Booker said, quote, stepping down is not an admission of guilt, but an acknowledgement that holding public office often demands tremendous sacrifices at great personal cost. Senator Menendez has made these sacrifices in the past to serve, and in this case, he must do so again. I believe stepping down is best for those, but Senator Menendez has spent his life serving, unquote. And that's the end of that article. That was final statement.
Oh boy, I came in just before you finished it.
Yes, you came in just before I finished it, but that's all right. Okay, that's not a problem. That was the end of it. What I intended to do after going through these two articles, okay, and the reactions of people, was to go to Open Secrets and see what he looked like from the standpoint, okay, of Open Secrets. So I'm going to share one of his pages, okay, on Open Secrets. Uh, Here, I think I've got up the right one. It says,
Your phone. They scrubbed it all. It's all scrubbed out because they don't know how to deal with gold bars.
Senator Robert Menendez. Let's see if I can bring that up quickly. I had a link to it. I had it up in my other browser, and I had a link to it, and I clicked on that link here, and this is what I got. Search results for Senator Robert Menendez. It says no members found. Okay, did I spell Menendez wrong?
No.
I did not spell Menendez wrong.
No, you didn't.
Current members.
Have they taken it down? No.
I don't know. This is
That's
not
really strange.
Yes, it is.
Let me
really
try
strange.
see if what I find. Let's see what I find just out of curiosity. That's weird as heck. Maybe it was open too long and it got closed out.
I'm going to go back to the candidates and office holders page and see if I can get that. congressional committees, members of Congress, federal. Okay, I'll go back even further. Let's see. Go back to the home page and see what I can get. We are open secrets.
I need a search bar here.
Okay, let me get to elections and fundraising data.
Dark money.
Okay, congressional races. Select the state.
I'm not getting anything here.
Should be able to get to New Jersey pretty quickly. New Jersey. Select the state. This House races over here. We don't want House races. Where are they? Where's the Senate races?
Okay.
Okay, so why did it bring up only House races? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not having much more luck. I'm going to try candidates and office holders. Members of Congress.
That's where I'm searching now.
Yeah. But there should not, I guess that includes Senate and House too?
Robert Menendez.
We'll search for a member. Okay. Senator Robert Menendez.
Okay, must be because I'm searching on 2022 races that they are not, actually bringing him up.
No, not for me either. But they should have. He's a member though. I'm looking under member, not just current members.
He's a member of the Senate.
Yeah, but and they only have the 117th Congress here. Oh no, here's chamber, filter by chamber. All right, here's Senate, filter by party, and okay, go down. This is leading me to Menendez. Yes, he's here. $5,411,072.
Okay, I've got his campaign finance summary now.
Okay, yeah, we got to the same place at about the same time.
Yeah, we probably got to. Yeah, so he was on the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. He's on the Finance Committee and the Foreign Relations Committee.
Yes.
That would indicate that he was the chairman.
I think he stepped down. I think he recently stepped down from being the chairman.
Oh, you mean in the last couple of days?
Yes.
Okay. So his top industry from 2017-2022 was lawyers. Okay, they produced roughly about $1.8 million for him. His top contributor was the Vote Sane PAC. That's in the period 2017 to 2022. They produced $119,505 for him. He raised in the period 2017-2022 $16,539,812. He spent $12,315,290. So his cash on hand going into the next election is roughly $5.9 million.
His second largest contributor, Joe, was an ORPAC. And
Yes,
that's the APAC on steroids.
yes. $84,800.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if there's anything. Uh, Again, his top industry was lawyers and law firms. Second top industry was real estate. That was $1.4 million. Securities and investments, $1.1 million. Health professionals, $852,410. His fifth, uh, they, the industry ranked fifth was the pro-Israel industry, $727,000, 500, $727,582. Uh, okay, you can see that uh, he always raised more than the average senator in years that he was running.
Mm.
Good deal more than the average senator. As of 2006, when he won first, 2012, okay, when he ran again, he raised far more than the average senator. In 2018, he raised far more than the average
How
senator.
much did he raise? Curious.
In 2018, he raised $9.49 million. That's what his campaign committee raised. Okay, now,
I raised about $5,000 in 2018.
oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That's just what happens. The major party candidates have huge funding advantages.
Yes.
Let's see, there may be something else here. There it is. Uh, if we look at the campaign committee and also the leadership pack
Mm.
together, okay, we combine them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we have an expenditure page there too, and let's see what that says. Lawyers and law firms from 2017 to 2020, 1.975 million,
Mm.
and NORPAC's figure then suddenly goes up to $359,589. Okay, remember, without the PACs in there, uh,
Mm.
they were down at something like $84,000. But when we look
Mm.
at the combination of the campaign committee, okay, and the PAC money, it's up at $359,000. Okay, much more. His leadership PAC is the New Millennium PAC. Also, you see the total money he raised is up by $5 million,
Mm.
$18.9 million here, and the spending is up a bit too. Uh, Now he's got about $6.5 million on hand going into the 2024 election. So that is his head start.
Mm.
Uh, his top contributor, okay, is NORPAC now,
Mm.
and VoteSane is at 119,500.
Yeah, Menendez stepped down as chair of the Foreign Relations Committee. This was reported on September 22nd, 2023.
Yeah, he stepped down as chair. That's what he did in 2015 also. So he's done the
Mm.
same thing here, but he's
Mm.
not resigned from the Senate,
No, 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 not at all.
as some people, okay, have been urging him to do. He wants to stay and to fight it out and to be exonerated in court or get some kind of thing again that causes a mistrial. So,
And with all that money in his bank account, he's not. I mean, he doesn't want to return the money. He wants to campaign and win again, like you said.
yes, of course, he's got the top industries from 2017 2022. Looking at the combined figures,
Mm.
okay, lawyers and law firms were tops again, and real estate was just behind them, 1.7 million. Securities and investment were at 1.3 million. Health professionals, 914,000. That was mostly dominated by individual contributions. Okay, lobbyists, $879,182. That was his fifth most uh, significant industry. Yeah, and it's a lot of money, okay, from lobbyists.
Mm.
Okay, once again, when we look at the graph,
Yeah, he's a true man of the people.
yeah, the true man of the people. Well, we're going to see more about this in just a minute. If we look at these
Okay.
figures, large individual contributions accounted for 70% of what he raised. All right, okay, that's
Mm.
11.6 million in round figures. His
Mm.
PAC contributions were 2.6 million. Large individual contributions were 70% of what he raised, and the PAC
Mm.
contributions were another roughly 16%.
Mm.
Okay, okay. There's an okay. This other category, nobody knows what's in this other category. Somehow they get away with uh, actually classifying it, and a lot of senators and congressmen do this. Okay, in many cases. In this case, that was 12.26%.
Mm.
Okay, those contributions were not really visible to us as type, but this is very significant right down here. His small individual contributions, less than $2,000, 200. I'm sorry, less than $200.
Mm.
360,455. That represents only 2.18% of what he
Jeez.
raised. So, in other words, he's getting large contributions from wealthy people who can afford to contribute more than $200. Now, some people may argue with me and say, well, you don't have to be wealthy to make a contribution of $200. All I have to say to that is that normal people, a contribution of $200, of more than $200 to a politician,
Mm.
that's a very substantial contribution to a politician because people are not that in love, okay, with politicians. So if someone can afford uh, uh, to make a contribution greater than $200, they have to be fairly well off compared to the average voter. And
Okay.
so he has only 2.2% of small dollar donations here. If we consider
Mm.
that small dollar donations, okay, are the ones that are important, okay, for democracy, uh, okay, we can see how skewed he is to taking money from wealthy people, okay, and from PACs. And I don't even have to look at the super PAC totals here. Uh, I don't think he has much of a need for super PAC contributions because he was running in races that pretty well were predetermined.
Yeah, I mean, I came in third. In that race in 2018, and also in the race in 2020 against Cory Booker. So I was third and the highest vote getter amongst independents. But when I say I came in third, I was millions, more than a million votes behind. The second place finisher. So it sounds great, and in some ways it was, but there was no way I could compete with that kind of money, nor that I would want to either. Um, So, so the gap created by that money and those connections is extremely significant and very hard for an independent to overcome.
It's hard for an independent, okay, to overcome the. Okay, let me see if there's another page on this here that I can click on that will make things more clear uh, in a certain instance. But uh, okay, yeah, this is summary data. Okay, for this election, the Republicans tried to get him in 2018.
Mm.
They ran a candidate, okay, by the name, okay, of Hugan,
Yes, I remember.
Bart Hugan. He raised and spent $39 million. Okay, but okay. So Senator Menendez spent $13.5 million.
Mm.
So he was outspent by 3 times. But the power, okay, of incumbency
Mm-hmm.
was so powerful, okay, in Jersey that he still won by 54 to 43,
Hmm.
54%, okay, to 43%.
And I got less than 1%.
And you got less than 1%. Yeah, you're listed here as 0.0% of the vote.
No, 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 no. I was more than 0.0.
Yeah,
They're erasing me. They're erasing me entirely.
yes, they're erasing you entirely. I understand that. Yeah, you got more than 0%, but they were rounding, the rounding errors there. Outside
Yes.
spending. Oh, you did hear something interesting. Uh, okay, so in the Menendez case, $2.1 million in outside spending
Mm.
uh, uh, supporting him. Okay, that's coming from super PACs and carry committees, organizations like that. But there was $6.9 million in outside spending, okay, that was opposing him. So, in outside spending by super PACs, okay, he was at a net loss of more than $4 million. Okay, and he was outspent by 3 times as well. But the
Mm.
power of incumbency was such that he was still able to win that race.
Despite the scandal, despite being outspent, he's entrenched and he continues to be entrenched. And I would guess that that's partially the reason why he's not inclined to step down. Why step down if you still have all those contacts and all that support that you had before?
Yes, if you
Um,
still have all those contacts, uh, okay, and you've got the name recognition, okay, as a
mhm.
senator, which is so important, then why should you step down? Okay, here again we have the classification of the sources, okay, of funds. It's a little different from what we read before because we were looking at the period 2017 to 2022, and here we're looking at the results for 2018. So the numbers are slightly different, but the pattern is the same. Is small individual contributions less than $200, roughly 3% of what he
Mm,
raised.
mm,
Large individual contributions, the ones from rich people, 67.42%.
mm,
PAC contributions, 15.8%
mm,
of what he raised. And then that other category, about uh, $1.7 million, 13.47% of what he raised. Uh, his opponent, okay, but Eugen, uh, had even fewer small dollar donations.
Mm.
$260,942. 0.67% small dollar donations.
Mm. See, that's like my 0.0% of the vote. I mean, it's just about non-existent.
Yeah, in other words, the percentage of small dollar donations,
Mm-hmm.
0.67%. Large individual contributions weren't that great either, considering what he spent. They were 2.7 million. That was 6.84% of what he raised.
Mm.
But the key point here is he was doing candidate self-financing.
Uh-huh.
He's a millionaire or maybe a billionaire. He
Mm.
spent $36 million on his own campaign,
Jeez.
92% of what he raised.
Mm.
So, if we consider that a large individual contribution,
Indeed.
okay, it turns out that roughly 98%
Mm.
of the money he raised, maybe 99%, was from large individual contributions.
Well, and that, in a sense, that's the difference between him and Menendez. Menendez may not have gotten that much more money from small contributions, but he's got more PAC funding, more,
More
more
PAC,
industry funding,
yes,
and that's what entrenches him, is all of that,
yes,
because I mean, having one large funder, basically, i.e., oneself, doesn't really. I mean, it helps, but it doesn't put you over the top. Apparently, not in Jersey, anyway.
yeah. Let's see if we can find a little more in terms of detail. If we
All
look,
right.
if we look at the sector totals for 2018, uh, okay, agribusiness sector 134,742. As that goes, that's a small amount from the agribusiness sector.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Communications electronics 405,000. Construction 485,000. That's a
Mm-hmm.
fair amount from construction.
Mm-hmm.
From defense, $61,475. That's not very much.
That's very low.
That's very low. Yeah. Okay. From energy, natural resources,
Mm.
of course, includes the oil companies. It's also fairly low, 220,000. But finance, insurance, and real estate, the fire sector, came in big for him, $2.7 million. The health sector came in big for him. It's probably.
Well, he's not pro Medicare for all.
Oh no,
I mean, he's.
I'm sure that was from the companies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there was over $1 million, okay, from the companies, from lawyers and lobbyists who also come in big for him all the time. $1.9 million. Okay. Uh, Transportation, a small amount. Miscellaneous business, 813,000. Very little from labor, 294,000. Okay, from ideology, single issue groups, $1.2 million. That's a fair amount, okay, from those groups. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly which ones.
Mm.
Which of the ideology single issue groups were
Mm.
supporting him strongly, but we can conjecture that that was another way of classifying uh, the pro Israel contributions.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, but there are other categories that can better show that. Uh, Maybe if we look at the industries here, again, we're in 2018. Menendez, real estate. Yeah, pro-Israel, $585,922
Mm.
in the 2022 campaign. So that's a fair amount. Okay, not as much as the lawyers and law firms gave him. They were 1.457. Real estate, 1.2 million. Securities and investment, 709,000. And retired people, $592,308. Okay, and then comes pro-Israel at
Mm.
584, 84,000. Uh, okay, leadership packs, 337,000. So that sort of tells you a little more about where the money came from. Uh, okay, to provide some context here, he does not raise or spend really large amounts of money compared to other people because his seat, okay, has been pretty safe.
Yes, that's a good analysis there. Good point.
Okay, well, for example, you can even compare it to the top fundraisers, okay, in the House. Uh, the top fundraisers in the House are people like uh, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, okay, and Katie Porter, both of whom in 2022 raised in excess of $20 million for their races.
Hmm.
So that gives you a sense of the scale of what is going on. And both Katie Porter, okay, at AOC, uh, raised a lot of money from the donations of $200, okay, or less.
Hmm.
But they also raised, okay, a lot of money from large individual contributions that were greater than $200. Okay, so they were taking a lot of money from wealthy people, okay, as well.
Yeah, and I mean, is there anything really? I mean, the question would be, where do their policy positions differ from somebody like a Robert Menendez? And um, I don't know. I mean, I guess we could go point by point on certain things, but I don't see that big a difference.
Right. Well, there's
Um,
a difference, generally speaking, there's a big difference between them, okay, and Robert Menendez when it comes to climate issues.
mm,
There's also a big difference between them, okay, and him when it comes to banking issues concerning the banks. But Katie Porter was pretty aggressive compared to other Congress people, okay, at going after the banks.
yeah, but I guess what I'm talking about is what's the bottom, what's the bottom line here? How have the Democrats really pushed the envelope on any of these? So I guess that's the going back to the corporate Dems versus the ones who have a little more connection to the grassroots. How much of a connection is it, and has it really significantly altered the overall policy direction?
Yes.
I'm splitting hairs a little bit because
Well,
because
I don't think you are splitting hairs, okay, in the
mhm,
sense that while these people as individuals, I'm speaking now of AOC and Katie Porter,
mhm,
uh, okay, may have certain views as individual representatives of Congress that square with Green Party views, okay, or views, okay, of people who are pretty lefty. Uh, when it actually comes to the bottom line of how
mhm,
they vote,
mhm,
what they actually support, they knuckle under to the party in their voting patterns They are largely dictated to by Hakeem Jeffries, who's now the ranking member, in the House, and they were certainly dictated to by Nancy Pelosi.
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh my goodness.
They really caved to her, and in 2020 they had the votes, to deny her the speakership.
Mm,
In other words, they could have dismissed her
yes.
from the speakership, at the start of 2000, and 21 on January 3rd of 2021. They could, have voted against her for speaker, and they had enough votes that if they hung tough, they
Mhm.
could have stopped her, from becoming speaker again. She would have had to withdraw. They could have done the same thing to her that Matt Gaetz just did by Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, the Speaker of the House in the Republican Party is not a sacred cow. Um, but Nancy Pelosi was, hands off Nancy Pelosi. And
But
we all know
if
where that led.
if they had stood, together, as a
Yes,
bloc,
yes,
they could have stopped her, from becoming the speaker,
yes.
and they just didn't have the guts to do that. Is the bottom line.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you because as you mentioned, and as we've all seen, there's nothing sacred about whomever is the Speaker of the House. If there's a need to unseat them, some people can do it. They could have done it, but they decided against it. And what does that? What I mean, the impact of that. Who knows what the impact of that was over time? Joe, I'm fading fast here.
Okay, that's all right because we've been here for an hour and a half or so. So
Okay.
I think it is time to say goodnight. I want to summarize by saying that if the rule were applied, I'm just gonna before you leave, I'm just gonna
Sure.
the rule, which I have up here somewhere. Let's see.
The dump the corruption rule.
Yeah, the dump the corruption rule. That's it. You vote against every candidate except those who won't take money from wealthy corporations, individuals, PACs, or party committees, and who repudiate all super PAC support. Based on this rule, certainly Menendez would be considered a corrupt individual, who we ought to dump. And that's completely outside the current charges,
Yeah.
against him, because his pattern of fundraising and spending was based on taking money, from wealthy individuals. To a great extent, that was his base of support. It was those donors that he was representing, in Congress. And
You got that right.
in particular, if we could get down into the guts of the individual contributions, you would probably find that those big supporters of Israel, who are hugely wealthy, found a way to filter lots and lots of money, to Menendez. Uh, but all in all, I have to say that the pattern of his fundraising and spending is not an atypical pattern for senators. They're all corrupt to the same extent, that he is. And if this rule were applied to the office holders and candidates of both of the major parties, the evidence I have so far from examining the records of individuals here, I think that D&I examined something like 205 people, in Congress, about I think it was 30 senators, and all the rest were Congress people. And every one of them would have been dismissed by that rule if people were voting, according to the rule.
Out on their ear. I can just visualize it. They'd all be out on their ear.
out on their ear, and Menendez would have been out on his ear as well in
Yeah,
2018.
yeah. I'm sorry there was no dump the corruption movement then.
Yes, I'm sorry that there's no dump the corruption movement to speak of now either, but I hope that we can get it going over the next 6 months or so, and that
Yeah,
it can affect things in 2024.
I think it will even. I mean, I think, I'll just say this, I think the whole issue of corrupt politicians, it's an international issue, but within the United States as well. I think people see it. They may not be connected to this movement, but I think there is a groundswell. There has been a groundswell against it for quite
Yes,
some time.
I think there has been to some degree for quite some time, as you say. But what I would like to see happen is for Cornel West to run on this as his chief issue, and to basically say the other people who are running for president, okay, are corrupt because they are taking big money from these sources. But I am not. I am doing only small dollar donations. Therefore, I will look to you voters as a support for me. I will represent you because I am not bought. But these
Hmm.
other candidates who are running for the major parties, they will represent their donors and not you. I'd like to see him run that way. I'd like to see Williamson run that way, and I would like to see Bobby Kennedy run that way also.
Well, we'll see. We've got time.
Yeah, we've
Um,
got some time yet, but I think some of them by now, okay, specifically Bobby and Marianne, must be getting pretty desperate. So maybe they'd be willing to change their strategy in the campaign to emphasize something like this.
on that note, Joe, I must say goodnight.
Okay, thank you for
Unless
coming,
you,
Madeline.
you're welcome, unless you want me to sleep on the air, and I don't think you do. Good
Okay,
night.
thank you, Madeline. Good night.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. And Dee, have you any final comments?
No, I'm kind of tired here myself, but I'm joking.
I
I
think
think
this,
we really went through Menendez. We know
yeah,
him inside and out.
yeah, I think so too. Okay, so Dee, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, it was as always, okay, a pleasure. And I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow,
Yes,
hopefully.
and yes, and please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Right?
Right, and please buy us some coffees.
Need a coffee.
Yes. Okay, good night, Dee.
And good night. Good night, Barney.
Good night.
Okay. Okay, so